English.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the fifth plenary session of the 23rd IISS Shangri-La Dialogue on the theme, Managing Regional Tensions Amid Global Competition. Let me begin by thanking the President of the Republic of Singapore, the staff of the Istana and MINDEF, for the wonderful informal reception that they kindly offered our delegates at the Istana yesterday. We had a tremendous day yesterday of multilateral and minilateral diplomacy in an effort to manage regional tensions amid global competition, and delighted to concentrate on this theme this morning. And we have three marvelous and charismatic presenters this morning. Koizumi Shinjiro, the Minister of Defense of Japan. You might be interested, the first time I think I met Koizumi-san when he was Minister of the Environment, we had a short conversation about the subject of green defense. So like many here, he tries to balance the strategies of defense with the necessary strategies of climate change. It's a delight also to have with us Dilan Yeşilgöz, the Vice Prime Minister and Minister of Defense of the Netherlands. She's also the leader of the party, the current leader of the party in Parliament. Rubens Brekelmans was our Defense Minister from the Netherlands yesterday, so they've sort of switched roles, though Dilan is still leader of the party, so she can exert kind influence over what Rubens does in the Parliament. And really happy to have, again, our very good friend and a strong supporter of the Shangri-La dialogue, Dato Seri Mohammed Khalid bin Norden, the Minister of Defense of Malaysia. I'll ask them in 30 seconds or so to go to the podium and deliver their formal remarks. And when all three of them have spoken, I'll open it up for questions and answers. I'll take 7 or 8 in a group, come back to the panel, and then go back. When we move to the Q&A, Minister Koizumi has kindly said that he will deliver his remarks in English, but in the Q&A, he will answer in Japanese. So for those of you who don't have perfect command of that language, you might wish to take tactical possession of your headphones and apply them at the right time. So with that, having now completely settled the room, could I ask, please, Minister Koizumi to address the 5th plenary of the Iiss Shangri-La dialogue.
It is a great honor to speak in front of you today at Shangri-La Dialogue, an extremely important forum for considering the future of the Indo-Pacific. I extend my heartfelt respect and gratitude to the IISS who organized this event, and to Singapore, our gracious host. I am also delighted to share the stage with the Minister of Defense, Khalid of Malaysia, and Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Defense of the Netherlands, Minister Dilan. Distinguished guests, the Indo-Pacific is the world center of growth. We are blessed with the power of youth, with technology, and with vitality. And above all, we are bound together by free and open seas. Peace and stability in this region are not matters for this region alone. They are directly linked to the peace and the prosperity of the whole world. Today, ministers from nations that bridge the Pacific, the Indian Ocean, and the Atlantic are all gathered here. This demonstrates the connectivity of the 3 oceans. I want to extend warmest welcome to the Netherlands' recent presence in this region. But at the same time, the Indo-Pacific is facing a severe reality. Attempts to unilaterally change the status quo by force or coercion, economic coercion, challenges to the established rules, complex competition, including in cyberspace and information domains, the weaponization of everything. The boundary between peacetime and contingency is becoming increasingly unclear. We are living in a time where social media and AI can be misused, and people's decisions can be shaken by disinformation and information manipulation. So what is really at stake today? It is the freedom of each nation to make their own choices by their own will. Today, we are seeing a situation in which the Strait of Hormuz is unfree and closed. A strait that is neither free nor open. Sea lanes that are neither free nor open. An order that is neither free nor open. Who benefits from such a situation? The importance of a free and open order can never be overemphasized. Distinguished guests, each nation has the power to choose for itself, And on that foundation, we build, protect, and strengthen a free and open region. Japan will work together with all of you to realize this goal. This determination is embodied in the upgraded FOIP, newly set forth by the Takaichi administration. No country should be forced or coerced to take a certain path. Every country must be able to choose its future by its own will. And this region must remain open to all countries that respect our shared rules and principles. This is the Indo-Pacific that Japan envisions. That said, the vision will not be realized just by wishing for it. It requires action. It requires sustained action. In particular, the defense authorities play a crucial role in order to realize this vision. We need to make sure the efforts of each country will not end up being isolated. Operational cooperation, joint training, information sharing, defense equipment and technology cooperation, defense industrial cooperation, structural framework. We must consolidate all these efforts and turn them into effective deterrence and response capabilities. We need three things to make this happen: trust, transparency, and talks. Trust. International law is upheld. Sovereignty is respected. Unilateral change to the status quo by force or coercion cannot be tolerated. Without sharing this conviction, regional order does not make sense. Transparency. OPEC military buildups and action without clear intentions will be the cause of distrust and miscalculation. Transparency is the baseline for reducing tensions and preventing crises. And talks. All nations have different positions. All nations have different views. But that is precisely because we need to have talks. We engage in talks because we have differences. We continue to talk because there exist tensions between us. Japan is always open to have talks with any country. At the ADMM Plus held in Kuala Lumpur last year, hosted by Minister Khaled here, I had the opportunity to have a frank and fruitful discussion with my Chinese counterpart. I am feeling sad that we were unable to have the opportunity to have a meeting this time. But again, we keep the door open to talks. I remain committed to communicating with the countries concerned, including China, for the peace and the stability in the region and of the world. Distinguished guests, Japan will take concrete actions. First, Japan will steadily build up its defense capabilities and make continuous updates with a high degree of transparency. AI, unmanned systems, cyber, space. New ways of warfare using these technologies are spreading across the world. It is only natural that every country is working to update its own defense capabilities in order to respond to these new challenges. Japan, too, will respond to these new developments swiftly, yet steadily. We will do so in order to defend our nation and to contribute to peace and stability of a free and open region. And Japan will carry out this update with a high degree of transparency. What are we developing these capabilities for? And based on what thinking, Japan will move forward while making a clear explanation to the international community. The fundamental reinforcement of our defense capabilities, strengthening our defense production and technology base, and the revision of the 3 strategic documents expected to be done late this year are all part of this effort. Japan will not look away from reality. We will make the necessary preparations with a sense of responsibility. Distinguished guests, some of you may have heard the term new militarism, but nothing further from the truth. Think about it. There is a country that has a huge arsenal of nuclear weapons and strategic bombers. Japan has neither of such weapons, and yet Japan is labeled new militarism. Isn't it strange? Since the end of the Second World War, Japan has consistently respected international law, including the Charter of the United Nations, and has made sincere efforts to maintain and strengthen a free and open international order. Japan's past as a peace-loving nation has been valued by the region and by the international community. This fact will not be shaken by false claims because it is a fact. And let me say this as well. Differences in perception and friction do arise between nations. What is needed at such time is not a repetition of unfounded claims in the other side's absence. What is needed is direct and candid dialogue. And in fact, Japan's door to dialogue is always open. Second, Japan will further strengthen cooperation with all of you, strengthening the deterrence and response capabilities of the Japan-US alliance, sophisticating training through the use of the reciprocal access agreement with Australia, the Philippines, and the United Kingdom, maritime domain awareness and cutting-edge technology cooperation in the Quad framework, defense cooperation with ASEAN countries, greater resilience of industrial base, including through PIPER and AUKUS. We will link all these efforts to turn points into lines, and from lines into planes. Third, Japan is determined to play a new role in defense equipment cooperation across the region. This April, Japan fundamentally revised its domestic framework concerning the transfer of defense equipment and technology. The OSA, launched in 2023, is also steadily producing results. The aim of these initiatives is to tangibly strengthen deterrence and response capabilities of the region. And both initiatives have been highly valued by countries across the region. What matters now is to ensure the seamless provision of necessary equipment and capabilities to the region as a whole. What if necessary items run short and logistics is cut off in crisis? We cannot afford such a scenario as the whole region. That is why Japan will be even more proactive in defense equipment cooperation, defense industrial cooperation, and maintenance and sustainment cooperation. Our aim is to ensure that each country has the capabilities it needs and to make them available when needed. A great deal of cooperation is already underway. Cooperation with Australia on frigates, the provision of radar systems and patrol vessels to the Philippines, development in cooperation on destroyers and frigates. New Zealand expressed their interest in Japan's naval vessels, and a new cooperation framework with Indonesia. These efforts are not exclusive or not directed at any particular country. These are the efforts to support each country to choose for itself, to defend itself, and to contribute to regional stability. Japan is hoping to be a reliable partner for that purpose. And Japan is hoping to serve as a connecting point that brings together the efforts of the region. Distinguished guests, division weakens deterrence. Unity strengthens deterrence. If gaps emerge among the United States, Europe, and allies and like-minded countries, forces which take it as an opportunity will surely come in. We must prevent such a situation. We must keep our cooperation going on. Now is the time to make our cooperation even stronger. What we seek is not a region that can only endure crisis. We seek a region that can stand against coercion. We seek a region that is not misled by falsehoods. We seek a region that is not influenced by pressure. A free and open Indo-Pacific is not something to be given by someone. It is something we must build and protect ourselves. and something we must pass on the next generation. Japan will walk towards this goal with all of you. Japan will act together with all of you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Minister Koizumi, for your strong defense of national sovereignty, your commitment to talks and dialogue, your promise to develop new defense technologies in full strategic transparency, and your desire for open defense cooperation with like-minded nations. Thank you very much for that strong message. Deputy Prime Minister Dilhan from the Netherlands.
Excellencies and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, let me begin with a heartfelt thank you to our gracious host, the Singapore Ministry of Defense and the International Institute for Strategic Studies. Thank you for your warm welcome and for creating a forum where countries from every corner of the world can still come together openly, honestly, and respectfully to discuss the defining security challenges of our time. It is a great honor to speak to you today. The theme of this plenary session, Managing Regional Tensions Amid Global Competition, could not be more relevant. Because we live in a world where crises no longer remain confined to one region. A missile launched in one theater affects shipping routes, food prices, energy markets, and political stability thousands of kilometers away. A cyber attack on one continent can disrupt hospitals, ports, and satellites on another. A war in Europe involves drones from Iran, soldiers and ammunition from North Korea, and various types of support from China. The lesson is clear. Regional tensions are no longer regional. Our security is interconnected. And because our security is interconnected, responsibility for our security must also be shared. For the Netherlands, this is not an abstract idea. We are a small country, although when it comes to football, we occasionally like to think of ourselves as a much larger nation. We'll see if you hear from us during the upcoming FIFA World Cup, and our first match is against Japan. So I hope we will be able to remain our friendship after the Dutch win. Sorry, back to our topic of today. So, small or not, the Netherlands is also one of the world's most connected economies, just like many countries in this region. Our prosperity depends on open sea lanes, secure supply chains, stable markets, a healthy dose of common sense, and friends and partners like you. When instability disrupts the Red Sea, our people feel it. When war hits the Persian Gulf, our people feel it. When tensions rise in the Indo-Pacific, we feel that too. Dutch, European, and Indo-Pacific security can no longer be separated into neat geographic boxes. Likewise, when Russia invaded Ukraine, countries far beyond Europe understood that this war was not only about territory. It was, and remains, about the future of the international order itself. We have seen countries across the Indo-Pacific step up in support of Ukraine. Countries like Japan, South Korea, Australia, and New Zealand have demonstrated leadership and solidarity. How the war in Ukraine ends matters not only in Europe, but also to Asia, to Africa, and to every country that depends on a secure geopolitical environment to safeguard its sovereignty and territorial integrity. Because if aggression is rewarded, that lesson will spread rapidly. Other actors, including here in the Indo-Pacific, may then conclude that borders are negotiable, that intimidation works, that might makes right. None of us should want to live in that kind of a world. And that is why dialogues like the one we are having right now here today matter so much. Because, ladies and gentlemen, the international order is not shaped by great powers alone. It is also shaped by smaller countries like ours. Countries that may not always dominate the headlines, but beyond the spotlight, it is countries like ours that drive global trade, diplomacy, innovation, and stability. Together, we have true power. Amid major power competition, middle powers cannot afford to become spectators, nor should we become the subject of conversations held by others. Together, we have great influence. We can defend international law. We can strengthen institutions. We can reduce the risk of escalation. And we can build coalitions that preserve stability. The fact that international rules are being violated does not mean we should abandon them. On the contrary, it means we must defend them more constantly and more courageously. International law may be imperfect, but history teaches us that the alternative is far worse. That is why regional organizations such as ASEAN and the European Union are so important. They foster a habit of mutual cooperation. They create predictability. They give middle powers a stronger collective voice. And they reduce the risk that competition turns into confrontation. At a time of fragmentation, we need more bridges, not more blocks. For the Netherlands, stability in the Indo-Pacific is directly connected to our own security. That is why we have steadily increased our engagement in this region and why we will continue to do so. At this very moment, our frigate De Ruiter is operating in the Indo-Pacific, engaging with partners across the region. She has already visited Kochi, Surabaya, and Manila, and as we speak, she is in Vietnam. This week, our Chinese counterparts made some statements regarding the vessel's routing. Let me underline that our frigate De Ruiter is following its planned route in full accordance with international law, operating in waters where freedom of navigation applies and without entering territorial waters. Ladies and gentlemen, the Netherlands has been one of the driving forces behind the European Indo-Pacific strategy, and we continue to turn that commitment into practical cooperation. Dutch military units regularly train alongside regional partners through exercises such as Super Garuda Shield, Exercise Komodo, and the upcoming Rim of the Pacific exercise, the world's largest international maritime warfare exercise. We have strengthened cooperation with partners such as Japan, including joint training with advanced capabilities such as the F-35 fighter jets. And our engagement is not only military. It is also diplomatic, industrial, technological. We invest in people-to-people exchanges, information sharing, cyber cooperation, and defense industry partnerships. We come to listen, to learn, and to build lasting relationships based on mutual respect and mutual interests. So, ladies and gentlemen, the challenges we face today are complex. The pressures on the international order are real. History is shaped by the choices we make and by the courage we show when the pressure rises. The Netherlands stands ready to work with all of you in the Indo-Pacific and beyond, as a reliable partner, as a listening partner, and as a country that firmly believes that stability is never built alone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deputy Prime Minister, for again reminding us that insecurity in one region migrates and commutes to others, that while economics might be deglobalizing, conflicts are highly globalized, and I think a really important comment that international order must be shaped by all countries, and the maintenance of order is not a spectator sport. Thank you very much for that. Minister, Malaysia.
Sir John, fellow panel, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, very good morning to all. Thank you once again for inviting me to speak at the ISS Shangri-La dialogue. Today's topic, managing regional tensions amid global competition, could not be more timely because tensions have now become globalized, interconnected, and increasingly volatile. Speaking candidly, we cannot meaningfully discuss managing tensions when the very foundation of peace, which is trust, reliability, and mutual respect, are steadily eroding and collapsing. Conditions contributing to disagreement, conflict, as well as tension. For decades, nations were told to believe in international law, multilateralism, contractual obligations, and the sanctity of agreements. We were told that rules matter, commitments matter, and international norms would apply equally to all nations, regardless of size and power. But today, treaties, humanitarian principles, and international commitments are being disregarded and selectively interpreted whenever these do not align with geopolitical interests. As a result, trust, as mentioned by my Japanese friend, is no longer universal. It is becoming conditional, selective, and increasingly transactional. That is why Malaysia deeply regrets Norway's decision to cancel the export of the naval strike missile system intended for Malaysia. Norway's action has created more than just a bilateral contract dispute. It raises a deeply troubling question about whether international agreement and strategic partnership can still be trusted at all. If even a nation regarded as a proponent of the rules-based order, well known for awarding the Nobel Peace Prize, could abandon commitment without consequences, then I'm afraid international relations are no longer governed by principles. They are governed by their own personal will and whims, and that is extremely dangerous trajectory for the international system, especially if it involves big powers. Secondly, the international order itself is facing severe strain. Institutions such as the United Nations, established to uphold stability, multilateralism, and international law, are becoming increasingly weakened in the face of geopolitical rivalry. International law is often treated as something that exists only on paper, observed strictly by countries of the global majority, but selectively interpreted by stronger powers whenever convenient. When developing nations violate agreement, they face condemnation and pressure. But when powerful countries or their allies do the same, the international response becomes conspicuously muted. The silence of many surrounding Norway's unilateral decision was particularly revealing. No serious concern was raised about the integrity of contracts or accountability. This deafening silence sends a dangerous message that some countries are simply above scrutiny. The same double standards are visible globally, where the ongoing genocide, war crimes, and violation of international law often receive selective reaction depending on who is involved. This blatant hypocrisy is profoundly destructive to the legitimacy and credibility of the rules-based international order. Thirdly, we are now witnessing alliances and strategic alignments being redefined in ways that will ultimately impact our region. Southeast Asia is already a peaceful region, contributed by ASEAN's indispensable role. But today, Southeast Asia faces mounting pressure from growing geopolitical rivalries, geo-economic fragmentation, technological competition, and strategic coercion. Countries in this region are being pressured directly or indirectly to choose sides and recalibrate long-standing strategic positions according to the interests of some. But ASEAN was never built upon coercion. ASEAN was never built upon dominance. And ASEAN was never built upon transactional politics. ASEAN was built upon dialogue, consensus, mutual respect, and collective responsibility for regional stability. So, let me say clearly, the moment ASEAN centrality is compromised, regionalism in Southeast Asia will cease to be meaningful and purposeful. And that would be extremely damaging, not only for Southeast Asia, but also the wider Asia-Pacific region and the rest of the world. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the Norway episode has exposed a harsh reality. Smaller nations did not create many of the crises the world faces today, but we are forced to bear the consequences of decisions made by powerful states which often disregard the principles they champion. That is precisely why, as the Prime Minister of Canada had highlighted, the middle powers must come together to restore rationality, predictability, and balance to international affairs. We must not stay passive while some powers are exerting their influence to shape and at times paralyze multilateral institutions such as the United Nations. Individually, countries within the global majority may not possess the overwhelming influence of major powers, but collectively, we have the moral legitimacy and responsibility not just to defend the rules-based order, but also to strengthen and restore the credibility of the United Nations itself. Here in Southeast Asia, ASEAN has demonstrated how smaller middle power nations can cooperate through active engagements and mutual respect anchored firmly in ASEAN centrality. External powers engaging with this region must respect ASEAN's norms, strategic sensitivities, and regional mechanisms, not to bypass them. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, ultimately, we need to identify and mitigate the root cause that created regional and global tensions in the first place. The issue before us is not only competition between nations. The deeper issue is the gradual erosion of trust within the rules-based global order and the international system. So our responsibility today is not merely to manage tensions. It is to restore credibility, to restore consistency, and above all, to restore trust. We must reaffirm that commitments matter, that agreements still matter, and that international law must apply equally to all nations, regardless of size, wealth, military strength, or geopolitical influence. Because if trust continues to erode, the world risks drifting from a rules-based order to a lawless, anarchic environment. And history has repeatedly shown us where such a path ultimately leads. That would be a grave failure of our collective responsibility towards global peace, stability, and humanity itself. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Seri Mohammed Khalid, for that very strong reassertion of the need to develop and maintain strategic trust, and actually for using this platform, frankly, to note your concern that the Norway-Malaysia arms agreement was cancelled. Of course, we all hope that you had perhaps a private opportunity to raise those disappointments with your Norwegian opposite number who is here. And the fact remains that, as many of us know, that defense export control regimes are highly complicated, not least because of the complexity of the supply chains and the variety of components and their places of origin. And that is certainly a regime, the defense export control regimes, which are sort of nationally or regionally managed, that need to be the subject perhaps of more active defense diplomacy to establish norms that can restore that trust and can ensure commitments are held to. So thank you very much, all three of you, for raising these very important issues. I will now turn to the delegates for a round of 7 or 8 questions and return to the panel. The first I shall call from the Republic of Korea, Chung-Min Lee.
Thank you very much, John. I have quick questions to Minister Koizumi and to the Dutch minister. To Minister Koizumi, your father, after 9/11, stood with President Bush in the White House on September 25, and he said he stood by the US. Your message is you're standing by Asia. In that context, would you consider defensive arms sales to Taiwan? And how do you plan to upgrade your defenses in Yonaguni Island? My question to the Dutch minister, as much as we love the Netherlands, I think Asians would like to see Japan win the first match. But having said that, ma'am, my question to you is, will you support a stronger South Korean and Japanese defense cooperation with NATO partners as we go forward? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And from the UK, Virat Solanki.
Thank you, Sir John. My question is for the Defense Minister of Japan. How do you see prospects for the Quad group of Japan, the US, Australia, and India? As you mentioned, in the last year, the group has adopted a greater focus on maritime security cooperation, especially on maritime domain awareness. Do you see an opportunity for increased defense and security cooperation within the Quad? And if so, what steps would you like the group to take to increase this cooperation? Thank you.
And from the Philippines, Renato Cruz de Castro.
Good morning. I have 2 questions addressed to Minister Koizumi and 1 question addressed to the Dutch Defense Minister. Minister Koizumi, recently the Philippines and Japan signed a comprehensive strategic partnership, which is, of course, an act of 2 sovereign nations and primarily intended for regional security. Interestingly, a third party immediately declared that such agreement is null and void. And of course, I'm talking about China, that has basically projected our 2 agreement, the comprehensive strategic agreement, as something, an act of Japanese militarism and a threat to peace. How would Manila and Tokyo, as sovereign and independent states, basically address China's efforts to basically put our security partnership in a negative and bad light? My second question pertains to the fact that the meeting between President Marcos and Prime Minister Sanai Takaishi happened a few weeks after the Xi-Trump summit in Beijing. How did the summit basically influence Tokyo's and Manila's calculation to forge a security partnership? And my last question, very short question, ma'am, is when the frigate, the Dutch frigate, the Littour, was in Manila, the Dutch captains mentioned an incident where the Dutch frigate was approached by a People's Liberation Army's helicopter. Can you tell us more details about that incident where there was, of course, an effort by the People's Liberation Army's Navy to investigate or possibly harass the passage of the Dutch frigate in the South China Sea. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. From Indonesia, Klaus-Heinrich Radito.
Thank you, sir. My question goes to Minister Koizumi. In the current situation, to what extent does Japan view China as its primary security threat? And how can Japan strengthen its defense in a transparent manner while avoiding escalation of tension over Taiwan? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take about 4 more, but from China, Zheshong Sheng.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chairman. My question goes to Mr. Koizumi, Minister of Defense, Japan. I'm very pleased that you mentioned the new militarism in your speech. I noticed that recently, Japanese leader expressed her condolence at the Australian War Memorial to Australian soldiers who lost their lives during the Second World War as a result of Japanese militarism. Yet, the victim nations in Asia have not received an apology or expression of remorse from the Japanese side. So China believes that genuine reconciliation must be based on a reflection on history that treats all victim nations equally. So I want to know whether the Japanese government is prepared to respond in an equally serious and unequivocal manner to the concerns of China, South Korea, and the victim nations of Southeast Asia regarding the history of the Second World War. Thereby, you can create the conditions for the mutual trust and the regional security. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And from Canada, Jenny Carino.
Yes, good morning. Our distinguished panelists have highlighted the many challenges related to global competition and the need to work together. Are there specific areas that you would recommend as common interest where we could increase that collaboration amongst ourselves and again, so that we can produce that productive dialogue that we all require? Thank you.
And from Cambodia, our young leader, Esarios Men.
Thank you, Chair, for the floor. First of all, yesterday we have listened to the Secretary of War talking about the equilibrium of the world regarding the defense system. I would like to know the opinion of all foreign defense ministry on the panelists. What does it mean to be strategically equilibrium for having a more peaceful world? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have a large collection. What I'm going to recommend is to ask first the Dutch Deputy Prime Minister to respond to those, to her and to the general panel, and then migrate to Minister of Defense Koizumi. Recall the need to put on your headphones for his replies. And then I will ask a couple of questions to Mohammed Khalid. Thank you very much. So, Dutch Foreign Minister.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the questions. I think I can be brief because the majority of the questions and the answers I would give were already also in my introduction. I think it's very important to start with the first question, a stronger cooperation between the Republic of Korea, Japan, and with NATO. I think that's very important. NATO is, of course, for us, our main framework, our security framework. Within that framework, we are trying to build up a European pillar, actually, to make sure that we build up our own defense industry, our own defense military. And I think it would be very wise that we keep seeking for new partnerships, friendships. And looking from the Dutch perspective, we are investing a lot of money right now in our military, in our defense. And for us, it's very important that we can also build up a defense industry so that our economies will also grow. So we will have a long-term base for that. And the only way to do so is also to finding new partners, new friendships, cooperations, co-productions. So I would support a stronger friendship. Then regarding the Dutch frigate, the Ruiter, Yeah, I already mentioned, and let me say that once more. It was following its planned route. It's still following its planned route. We do this every 2 years, and we will keep doing it also. It's for us very important to come here with our frigates, to exercise, to build up new partnerships. And we do this in full accordance with international law, in open waters, and we will not cross territorial waters. But those are our boundaries, and we will remain those boundaries we have agreed upon internationally. And then the specific areas of common interest for increased collaboration, the question from Canada. I think from my point of view, I will repeat the huge importance of building up our defense industry. If I look at the Netherlands, for decades we have been actually defunding our military, cutting funds, and therefore we have strong industry, but it could have been way stronger if we would have kept investing in it. So we are doing it right now, and I think that we have been too much depending on others for our own safety and security. So I look forward to an era where we can protect ourselves as much as we can. You will never be able to do that on your own. Obviously, we will always have partnerships. And I hope that a part of our common interest will be also building up an industry that can cooperate and work more like equal partners than the dependence we have with little way too much to my understanding. And well, achieving a more peaceful world. I'm not sure how to answer that one. Well, I had a very interesting meeting this morning with the young leaders. And if you see the combination of people there and their concerns, but also their solutions and their way of thinking, maybe it's a bit of a cheesy answer, John, but I think that, I hope that they will be able to prevent new conflicts and help us out with the conflicts that are here. But the true answer would be, like we are here sitting together with like-minded countries from every corner of the world, to make sure that we work together, and that's also a little bit of a cheesy answer. But I think that's the solution in the end. So maybe I can leave it at that for now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Minister Koizumi.
Thank you. Thank you very much for a lot of questions from the floor. Before answering the questions, let me go back to the comment made by Minister Dillon on football. You know, we are talking about managing regional tensions. I think there is a tension between Dylan and I now. But I'm confident that we can manage it.
I hope.
Yeah, in 2 weeks, she's coming to Japan, exactly the day Japan's national team and Netherlands national team is going to, on the field.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to cancel the meeting. Always open to that dialogue.
Okay.
Let me go to the easy part first. I know there are so many difficult and sensitive questions to me. The first part is second question to me about Quad. Thank you very much for your question. Recently, Japan's Foreign Minister Motegi visited India to have a Quad meeting with foreign ministers. It would be great if we can have that among defense ministers too. Defense cooperation could be an area we can work together. So if a diet schedule allows, it would be great if I can visit India to have that kind of dialogue. So I want to energize Quad to the next step. On the, how many questions I get?
You can group them into those 4 that are there.
Someone asked the Philippines cooperation to Japan. I'm very thankful to work with Minister Teodoro so closely. I just visited the Philippines 2 weeks ago to discuss about our transfer of second-hand frigate to the Philippines. We actually, before this speech and session, I met Minister Teodoro, and we reached broad consensus on officially transferring Abukuma-class frigate to the Philippines. So I'm committed to strengthen our defense ties with the Philippines with transparency. And, so please let me know if there's anything you want to ask more about the Philippine-Japan relationship and the defense ties cooperation. It's also same as Indonesia issue. Someone asked a question about Indonesia. I'm also very close relationship with Minister Sharif from Indonesia. Yesterday, I had a discussion with Vice Minister of Indonesia, and we also agreed to establish a working group on defense equipment and technology transfer from Japan to Indonesia. So I'm going to find out what the best way to start with Indonesia. Canada, thank you very much for your question. I think your minister is also coming to Japan in June. I'm really looking forward to seeing him since we met in Munich Security Conference. I hope it's not the day I'm going to see Dylan on that day. But with Canada, it's very important for us to work even more closely because, as I mentioned, the importance of openness and freedom of Indo-Pacific area. It is not just about regional issue. As Dylan and Minister Khaled said, now regional issues not just isolated with any region. So in the Pacific and North Atlantic, also Atlantic area, it's all connected. So I'm fully committed to work with Canada even more closely. I'm looking forward to working with Minister McGuinty soon. And I think it's time to move to the difficult part. Thank you very much for your question, Chinese participant. Thank you very much. Japan's defense policy and the defense build-ups are not based on the idea of identifying any specific country or region as a threat or having a military confrontation with it. That said, China continues to increase its defense spending at a high level and is rapidly expanding its military capabilities across a wide range of areas without sufficient transparency. China's external approach and military activities are matters of serious concern for Japan and the international community. At the same time, as I told my counterpart, Minister Don Jun, the Japan-China defense ministers meeting last November in Malaysia, Japan believes it is essential to have persistent, candid dialogue and communication without turning our eyes away from concrete and difficult issues, precisely because challenges exist. Japan's door is always open. The Ministry of Defense will continue to use various channels and every available opportunity to communicate firmly with the Chinese side. So please give my best regards to my counterpart, Don Jun. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And for the Minister of Malaysia, if I might ask you a question. Yesterday here in Singapore at the Shangri-La Dialogue, 17 countries launched the guide framework for cross-regional defense cooperation on critical underwater infrastructure. Could you say a few words about the importance of that agreement, Malaysia's perspective on it, and then also give us a sense of what is the kind of novel defense technologies that Malaysia might feel important to procure in order to deal with these very new threats that the region and the world is suffering from?
Okay, thank you very much. On the launching of the guide framework, it is in pursuant to a decision made during the ADMM meeting because of the various underwater infrastructure that is now in place. So we feel that there is a need for us to have some protection, security for that. and Singapore is leading on that area, and therefore we are very happy that there is some progress on this. So that is why we welcome the launching of the guide framework yesterday, and we hope that that can be the main foundation for us within this area to expand on the matter so that we will achieve our intention to see that the underwater infrastructure is protected. Because we know that there is a challenge, there is a risk. We are not only facing threats from on the land, on the air, but that also is now one of the threats for any country. On the second area, what kind of technology? Well, we have seen, we learned from the Ukraine-Russian war, we also learned from the Middle East crisis. As far as Malaysia is concerned, we see that what is relevant to us is to adopt the asymmetrical warfare. So anything that can assist Malaysia in developing asset or weapon that is required in an asymmetrical warfare is very much welcome. But then we will also see with who we are dealing with. Surely we will deal with those we trust. The episode that we received from Norway is a very good lesson for us. We cannot rely on those that are not sincere, and therefore we are talking to real partners of Malaysia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll go back now for one more round and then conclude just slightly before 11. So from the UK, Robert Ward.
Thank you, John. A question for Minister Koizumi. Minister, thank you for your opening comments. Your point on correcting the false claims about Japan's defence reforms was particularly important given the current environment. My question is on startups, which are playing an increasing role in Japan's defence industry, including through Atlas accelerator activity and emerging cooperation with external technology firms. How do you view the role of defence startups in strengthening Japan's defence industrial base, and how is the government planning to boost support for them? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And from China, Liu Wanxia.
Thank you, Chair. My question is for the Dutch Defense Minister. Your statement about the Dutch frigate around China's Shisha Island just now only tells part of the story. As the spokesperson for China's Ministry of National Defense has pointed out, the fact is that on May the 27th, a shipborne helicopter of the Dutch Navy illegally intruded into China's territorial airspace. The Dutch side talks a lot about respecting sovereignty and rules, but it uses so-called freedom of navigation as a pretext to severely violate China's sovereignty, rights and interests, and maritime and air security. My question for you is, do you believe this incident constitutes a breach of international law and the basic norms of international relations, including the UN Charter? Thank you.
Thank you. And from the US, Ankit Panda.
Thank you very much. My question is for Minister Koizumi. Thank you so much for offering an update on Japan's ongoing defense reforms. I wanted to ask you a little bit specifically if you can tell this group where matters stand regarding Japan's debate about the 3 non-nuclear principles that have traditionally been the floor of Japanese policy. Will the revised documents revisit the 3rd non-nuclear principle? And as a related matter, I wanted to ask, as the United States appears to be reconsidering the future of theater nuclear forces in the Indo-Pacific, what role does Japan believe forward-deployed or theater-range U.S. nuclear capabilities can play in the region? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And from Pakistan, Tanzila Khalil.
Thank you, Chair. Part of my question has already been asked by Ankit Panda from the US. My question is directed to Minister of Japan. Sir, lately there have been discussions and emerging voices within Japan and even South Korea in favor of acquiring an independent nuclear capability, given the inward-looking orientation of President Trump. And interestingly, there was no explicit mention of the term extended deterrence in the NDS 2026 document. So my question to the minister is, how does Japan view the long-term credibility of the US nuclear security assurances? Thank you.
Thank you. And a young leader from Timor-Leste, Ana Caistoche Pereira de Araujo.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Chair. This question is for the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Defense of Netherlands. My question is easy. So, as a female leader, serving both as a Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Defense, what challenges do you come across when navigating pressing security issues with your male counterparts? And also, do you find that your perspective as a woman influences your strategic decision-making? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And from Indonesia, Kutnuri Hikmah Sabri.
Thank you, sir. My question is for Dutch minister and Japanese minister. The Malaysian Minister of Defense raised a vital point about double standards and how international law is only used when it is convenient, selective application of international law. Do the other ministers on this panel agree with this assessment? If you do, what can we actually do about it to ensure that international law protects everyone equally, whether in Iran, Strait of Hormuz, or in Gaza? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Morgan Michaels from the US.
Thank you, Sir John. My question is for all of the panelists. We've heard a lot this weekend about the need for enhanced deterrence driven by increased defense spending. Could the panelists speak a little bit to the trade-offs or potential downsides associated with military buildup? Is there a risk of an accelerating arms race in the Indo-Pacific? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I did note in an extemporaneous remark yesterday that the phrase arms control had not yet been introduced into this particular dialogue, so perhaps it will be shortly. From the Republic of Korea, Yoon-bi Kim.
Hi, my quick question goes to Koizumi-san. So you emphasized the cooperation a lot during your presentation. Given growing discussions on the defense cooperation between South Korea and Japan, which areas such as maritime security, intelligence sharing, or combined exercise do you see as the most promising for deeper bilateral cooperation? And on the Strait of the Hormuz, what concrete role does Japan intend to play in safeguarding freedom of navigation and energy security? Thank you.
Thank you. And from Indonesia, Evan Laksmana.
Thank you, John. My question is to Minister Khalid. As you spoke about the decay in the international rules-based order, we appreciate the role that Malaysia had last year in terms of helping the situation in the Thai-Cambodia war. I guess my question to you is, how do you envision ASEAN to further institutionalize its conflict prevention mechanism so that in the future, not only can ASEAN manage these conflicts that arise, but also to prevent conflicts, not just between its own members, but with major powers as well? Thank you.
And from France, Lucie Béraud-Soudreau.
Thank you. My question is for all panelists. Minister Koizumi mentioned transparency in his speech quite frequently. But we notice, however, that as trust is eroding globally, transparency is also declining in the world when it comes to defense spending. So for all panelists, what would you tell your counterparts to convince them to be more transparent when it comes to defense spending and reverse this trend? Thank you.
And from the Philippines, Andres Santino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning. My question is directed to the Defense Minister of Netherlands. I thank you for your remarks earlier. Mentioned was that international rules are imperfect and are sometimes violated. May you share to us if you have concrete and clear proposals as to how these rules can be better complied, better respected, and better enforced. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And from Myanmar, Mian Do-on.
Thank you, Chair. My question is directed to Minister Nordin, Malaysia. What will be Malaysian policy towards China attempts to access Indian Ocean via Myanmar, or probably like a projection through Myanmar? Thank you.
And from the UK, Thomas Beckett.
Thank you, John. This will be a question for all of the panel. I guess it's no surprise that the Strait of Hormuz has been mentioned in every plenary so far. I think it's fair to say that it would not be in the Middle East interest for Iran to emerge from this war strengthened, and it wouldn't be in the world's interest for America to emerge strategically weakened. And if, as you said, John, that the maintenance of order is not a spectator sport, how would the panel suggest helping the US to get out of its current predicament?
Thank you very much. Worth a pause, that one. Seksan Ansikarat from Thailand. I'll move to one other and see if we can restore that connection. Ben Schwier from Germany.
Thank you. My question is to Minister Koizumi. You had a strong emphasis on the free and open Indo-Pacific, a term that was notably absent yesterday in Secretary Hegseth's remarks. So my question is whether, from your perspective, it is now time for Japan to become the new leader in the Indo-Pacific for upholding this very order. Thank you.
So I'll take two more and then come back to the panel. From the Solomon Islands, Loretta Brigida Manele.
My question is to all the panelists and especially to the Defense Minister of Malaysia. What caught my attention was when he mentioned root causes when it comes to tensions. So my question is, what do you guys think of what are the root causes that have led to regional tensions, and through which channels can these tensions be well addressed? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll take one question, but just to give some tactical advance warning to our panelists, I'll ask Malaysia to respond first, then the Netherlands, and conclude with Japan. Sotirakpo from Cambodia.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to address my question to His Excellency Koizumi. Japan have consistently surprised many big powers, including China and the US, in terms of security cooperation in Southeast Asia. If you read the recent survey by Iiss Yusuf Ishak Institute, Japan outpaced many of these powers. And it's to Cambodia, this is a very welcome sign. And I would like to also know what your new initiative called the Official Security Assistant that you're going to provide it to Cambodia, if I'm not mistaken, starting this year. What is the essence of this security assistant? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So each of you have 5 minutes each. Minister of Defense of Malaysia first, please.
Thank you. But from the last participant, I did not quite clearly understand what was being asked. But on defense spending and the call by the United States Secretary of War that country partners must spend at least 3.5% of their GDP, we respect the call by the United States. They have every right to have their own policy. We recognize that the United States is a very important partner and playing a very strategic role to balance, to create a balance in the Indo-Pacific region. But they must also understand that every country faces different circumstances, priorities, as well as constraints. For a country like Malaysia, we are a small country, we are a developing country, not a developed country. If America asks NATO and Europe to increase their spending, we can understand. But for a country like Malaysia, a developing country, we have other sectors that we need to develop. If we did not provide any development on other sectors, we may create other problems that will cause instability. So this is something that we hope that the United States can understand. On the issue of China and Myanmar, on the Indian Ocean access, Malaysia, I believe also with all other ASEAN countries, we have a non-interference policy on the bilateral arrangement between China and Myanmar. But whatever that arrangement that they have or agreement that they have, we just want to make sure that the security of the Straits of Malacca is protected through our, for whatever tension that has in this world, as we can see, by bringing global powers into the same space. A clear example is the United States-China summit. Both sides can understand and both sides will know what is the red line between the two countries. Our experience also in hosting the ADMM Plus, where it is a convening space for nations with different geopolitical standing, is a good platform for us to sort out all the differences and other things that can create tension. So there is a need for continuous engagement. I think Minister Uzaimi also said the same thing, where he regrets not meeting the China Defense Minister in this Shangri-La dialogue.
Thank you very much. Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you so much. The question from China, look, we are not here to seek conflict. We are here to seek cooperation with our frigates. And we did more or less the same route 2 years ago in good cooperation with China. And I hope the next time we are here in the area, we will have again a better encounter. Then when it comes to rules, the international law, rule-based, better, how we can make sure that they are respected. I think it's important when you look, for example, at the Russian aggression in Ukraine, it is very important that together we make sure that Russia does not win. That is not only very important for our continent, I think for the whole world, but it's also a clear signal that a brutal aggression and an unjust war is, that Putin cannot prevail. I think that is very key for Putin and all others who are seeking conflict in that matter. Then the arms race, I think that I already mentioned that countries such as the Netherlands, who have been defunding the military for years, we have to step up. We have to make sure that we can deliver as well. That is, in my perspective, not an arms race. That's not investing in the military and having the risk of, an escalation. It's being prepared, and it's showing that we are not naive. And we also know that there is no army in the world that can function on their own. So this is, for me, a coalition, a friendship, and the Netherlands, Europe, NATO, taking responsibility. So taking responsibility is the core for me. And finally, the question about, working with male counterparts in security, I have to deal with them. So that is what it is. We can't change that. And the female perspective, well, obviously women are way less emotional than men. So that's something I learned also in politics. Again, we have to deal with that fact. And I hope I can be an inspiration to all my male colleagues.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, Dylan, let me check if you are, you are correct, even if you are watching the football game with me. Let me answer the, Japan's commitment on free and open Pacific, in the Pacific, coming from German participant. Also, I think this is linked to the question from Cambodia on offshore security assistance. My answer is yes. Japan is ready to do more in order to keep this region and also the world even more free and open. So it was great that Secretary Hegseth was here with us yesterday and also answering to my question. His message to this area, to the Indo-Pacific, and the US commitment to the world was very strong. And so we must not underestimate US presence in this region. If we underestimate it, it produces vacuum or space to the party concerned. And also, thank you very much for the question from South Korean participant. Thank you. I feel thankful to work with Minister An closely. I had a very fruitful discussion with him yesterday, and I received official invitation to South Korea. So I'm looking forward to visiting your country very soon, maybe in June. Also, questions on, what's the next step for Japan and ROK defense cooperation? To be honest, Japan is ready to do more with ROK. But I understand the next step should be welcomed by the people of Republic of Korea. So I'm committed doing my best to prepare and to maintain the environment between Minister An and I. Also, thank you very much for questions on the nuclear posture and also extended deterrence commitment from the US. I think this is a very important question to everybody. We, Japan, keeps the 3 principles on nuclear policy as a government. And also, yesterday I had talks with US Secretary of War Hegseth about the next meeting with him, possibly within this year. It's very important to keep communicating with friends, with allies, and like-minded states. I think this issue and the question is linked to a question coming from a French participant, which is about transparency. I think transparency is not just coming from numbers or data. It's coming from the discussions and open dialogue between the allies and like-minded states. That's why I'm trying to explain Japan's policy at Shangri-La, a Munich Security Conference, and the Honolulu Defense Dialogue. And I also attended World Economic Forum at Davos in a meeting. It was the first case for Japan's defense minister to attend there. Also last year, I attended ADM Plus in Malaysia. As we talk about the tensions in the world and in the region, we need to talk. We need discussions. So continuous dialogue provides transparency. So I'm trying my best to do so, even with countries with disagreements. I'm always welcome to the dialogue. So thank you very much for Chairman Chipman to hold this Shangri-La, which is very meaningful and valuable this Shangri-La is my first time. It's great. So I hope I'm going to see all of you today, next year, or if you plan to come to Japan, everybody is welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. I might just close this session with two remarks. The first is to say that it has been difficult to think about how one exercises a degree of arms control even if one is not engaged in arms racing. This is the first time in my rather long career where there's very few discussions in any region of the world about organized arms control. And I think that is becoming important, perhaps not in discussion of conventional powers, or perhaps not even in discussion of putative nuclear balances of powers, but certainly in the realms of new technologies. There has been work done on so-called responsible use of cyber. There has been a lot of concern about the introduction of artificial intelligence in military decision-taking and targeting. There are general comments about having a human in the loop or a human on the loop. But I would say that in the future, the Shangri-La dialogue should also look very particularly about these new emerging defense technologies and whether there are new techniques that need to be adapted properly to regulate the way in which they're used. And on the question of an international order, international law is in one way only similar to municipal or domestic law, in that if it is not regularly attended to and modernized and enforced, it loses its legitimacy throughout a society that becomes, in the international space, quite anarchical. And I think engagement in legal diplomacy is something that foreign ministers and defense ministers need to do, to feel that that law is not ossifying, its origins are being respected, but that new norms are being negotiated across regions and within them so that there is a degree of regulatory power that oversees otherwise the exercise of force in any way. And the only other point I want to make is that I hope everybody noticed that on one of the issues here, football, I sat in a neutral position throughout that conversation, which is one that I try to maintain always in the Shangri-La dialogue. Thank you to our participants and our ministers for their talk. I have a present for you when you get your mic taken.
Ladies and gentlemen, our program will be commencing shortly. We invite you now to take your seats in the ballroom and switch your communication devices to the silent mode. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, our program will be commencing shortly. We invite you now to take your seats in the ballroom and switch your communication devices to the silent mode. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, our program will be commencing shortly. We invite you now to take your seats in the ballroom and switch your communication devices to the silent mode. Thank you.
Ministers, dear delegates, if I can invite you back into the room and to your seats, we shall now begin the sixth and concluding plenary session of this 23rd Shangri-La dialogue. Since Friday, we've been engaged in defense diplomacy. You will have seen some of the practical outcomes in terms of bilateral, multilateral announcements and agreements. Some of them were alluded to just in the session before. We shall now turn to the issue of evolving security partnerships in a fragmenting world. And amid the proliferating security challenges, there's also a move for new security partnerships. New security partnerships are emerging. Some countries and organizations are seeking to further strategically diversify their partnerships. Others rally around shared interest. And of course, we also talked about, over the course of yesterday, the basis of shared values that many organizations deploy. And so to manage security partnerships in what will look to most like an increasingly fragmented international order, that's our theme, and we have three extremely distinguished speakers to guide us. Gilberto Teodoro, the Secretary of National Defense of the Philippines. Minister, welcome back. It's good to have you here. We have Admiral Giuseppe Cavo Dragone, the chair of NATO's military committee, and in that function, the alliance's principal military spokesperson and advisor. And we have, of course, from the host nation, the coordinating Minister for Public Services and Minister for Defense of Singapore, Chan Chun Singh. And we will proceed to have the three statements from our speakers, and then we will have time for Q&A. And with that, Secretary Teodoro, may I invite you to take to the podium and offer your remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's my distinct honor to join Minister Chan and our wonderful host for this conference, Admiral Cavo Dragone, once again. In the first plenary session of this year's Shangri-La Dialogue, I wish to thank the IISS for graciously hosting us this weekend. And I would like to congratulate the organizers in advance for yet another successful dialogue. Normally, I start with takeaways, but I will leave that to Minister Chan to recap the takeaways that we had. So I will proceed. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's evident to all that we are in a period of transition. The institutions, rules, and norms which underwrote relative peace and prosperity for decades have come under strain, and long-standing structures of cooperation are evolving amid diverging priorities, shifting interests, and resource constraints. Against this backdrop, it is no longer a question of whether the international order will change. Change is already underway. And for us in the Philippines and the wider Indo-Pacific, this international order is constantly being challenged at sea. And I must make a prefatory statement that this year marks the 10th anniversary of the arbitral award on the South China Sea. This landmark ruling affirmed the fundamental principle that maritime entitlements are derived not from, quote, historic rights, unquote, but from international law, particularly the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. As His Excellency President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. stated in his historic keynote address, and I quote, "In the West Philippine Sea, we are on the front lines of efforts to assert the integrity of UNCLOS as a constitution of the oceans. With our defense of international law and strategic location, unlike any other, the Philippines has emerged as a hub for convergence among those committed to a rules-based order in the maritime domain, insofar as Philippine interests are concerned. Indeed, our allies and partners, some with differences among themselves, have nonetheless found common ground in our waters. In a fragmenting world, the Philippines is thus providential and providentially blessed to convene international actors of every stripe in defense of shared principles, particularly freedom of the seas, respect for the rule of law, particularly the rights of smaller and archipelagic states, sovereignty and territorial integrity of all states, which must be based on international law and UNCLOS for maritime and archipelagic states. This is a role we are very fortunate to play, and one that we do not intend to take lightly. In that spirit today, I would like to introduce a vision of the Philippines. It is entitled The Archipelagic Sentinel, Guardian of the Freedom of the Seas, or a guardian of the freedom of the seas. The idea was developed by renowned Filipino expert on maritime law, Professor J. Batumbacal. It's unfortunate that Professor Batumbacal is not with us today, but I must give credit to the distinguished professor. And it begins first and foremost with our geography. Our archipelagic waters are at the heart of busy and vital maritime trade routes that link the Indian and Pacific Oceans, making them indispensable to Southeast Asia and the Indo-Pacific. Hence, the Philippines is well placed to safeguard maritime liberty, and we will continue to adhere to international law. We will continue to adhere to international law, including the UN Charter, the 1982 UNCLOS, and the 2018 Arbitral Award, which binds the Philippines to UNCLOS, as well as the peaceful settlement of disputes through existing UN systems. Dispute settlement systems which are fair, transparent, and aimed not to gloss over major contradictions or problems, but to solve the root causes of our disputes. Through UNCLOS, the international community has recognized the extent of sovereignty, rights, and entitlements that we seek to protect. And on the basis of Pacta Sunt Servanda, we in turn will exercise these rights and entitlements in full accord with the norms and expectations of the international community. We do this openly and transparently, with nothing to hide. Third, ASEAN centrality. We will do our part in defending the autonomy of ASEAN member states and in ensuring that Southeast Asia remains peaceful, stable, and free from undue influence of any single hegemon, particularly those that have interests actively antagonistic to any of our member states. Now we recognize that we have divergence of views and interests, especially in the maritime sphere. Nevertheless, we hold true to the original ideals of ASEAN, that in diversity lies our strength, and through genuine autonomy, we will establish the basis of our unity. Thus, in our capacity as chair of the ADMM and the ADMM Plus, we will strive to preserve and enhance our internal cohesion and resist external attempts to speak for ASEAN. Fourth, deterrence. We will continue to work with countries that share our goal of protecting our rights and interests under UNCLOS. Ultimately, as strategic sentinel, we will stand watch over our sovereign rights and entitlements. And as guardian of freedom of the seas, we will stand watch with the international community for this part of the world. This vision is already coming to life through our ever-expanding network of allies and partners. We have conducted maritime cooperative activities with partners such as the United States, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, France, and India. And we are open to participation of other countries that share our commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific. May I make note that none of the ASEAN countries has ever claimed that these maritime cooperative activities are destabilizing to regional peace and security. In a similar vein, we have robust ties with our neighbor and fellow archipelagic country, Indonesia, and we welcome its enhanced defense partnerships with our treaty partners, Australia, Japan, and the United States. These developments reflect a shared recognition across the Indo-Pacific that we need more convergence. Understandably, it is a challenge for countries to find common ground while attending to our own national interests. Nonetheless, this exercise has been facilitated by growing concern over certain actors' behavior against its much smaller neighbors. To this day, the People's Republic of China, and it is our assertion upon whom the 2016 arbitral award is legally binding, continues to disregard it. I would like, therefore, to reiterate that the refusal to participate in Annex 7 proceedings under UNCLOS by a party that ratified UNCLOS does not absolve that party of responsibility to comply with the judgment of the arbitral tribunal. The refusal to participate and subsequent denial of the tribunal's jurisdiction and validity of its award is contrary to international law. Instead of honoring their obligations under UNCLOS, the PRC exhorts the Philippines to, quote, return to the path of negotiations, unquote. This reflects what retired Indian Foreign Secretary Vijay Gokhale describes in his recently published book, China Wars, as a, quote, talk and take strategy, unquote. In the context of the South China Sea, the author wrote, and I quote, the diplomacy gives the impression of restraint and a commitment to a peaceful negotiation, even as the ground realities are fundamentally altered, unquote. This is consistent with a pattern of behavior that we have seen exercised against the Philippines. To name but one example, former U.S. Representative Mike Gallagher and Aaron McLean wrote in Foreign Affairs that during the Korean War, communist forces who were losing on the battlefield shifted to negotiations where they could still achieve what they could not win by force. For the PRC, therefore, in the Philippine experience, negotiations are therefore not a path to conflict resolution, but a means of gaining advantage. And we will not be deceived. For our part, the Philippines has consistently adhered to UNCLOS and its dispute settlement mechanisms. Any diminution of UNCLOS cannot be accepted under the Philippine Constitution. It is the basis of our territory and maritime rights, which we are mandated to defend, not only for us, but for subsequent generations of Filipinos. Beyond challenges in the maritime domain, Sadly, we have monitored foreign activities that are inimical to our national interests. Recent espionage convictions in Britain and an elected United States official pleading guilty, acting as an illegal agent, are not isolated incidents. They are indicative of a pattern of interference that demands our consistent vigilance. Our recent raid of a Chinese national-owned Philippine Sanja Steel Corporation is just as revealing. Factory produced and sold substandard steel at artificially low prices, distorting market competition and eroding our industrial resilience. It likewise discharged contaminated materials and wastewater into a nearby river, posing serious risks to the environment and the health of surrounding communities. It's also being investigated for former linkages to online gambling and criminal networks. This case illustrates the need for like-minded countries to build mutually beneficial and reliable supply chains. In the information domain, unfortunately, we are witnessing the improper use of history, including the unfair vilification of Japan, to obscure one's own misbehavior at present. Japan certainly is a model citizen of the world. I think there is unanimity among almost all of us here. Our convergence is therefore necessary, first, as defense specialists, to resist malign activities and preserve the political, economic, and social fabric of our individual societies. In the face of these challenges, diplomacy is extremely important, but it cannot on its own keep pace with the rapid changes in the world order, which certainly allows some actors to exploit. Hence, it falls upon us, defense and military practitioners, not only to safeguard our own country's sovereignties and territorial integrities, but also to protect our people from the fallout of transitions in the world. And so I close with a call for convergence, to protect human life, to protect future generations, to protect the rights of smaller and archipelagic countries. In last year's Shangri-La dialogue, I advocated for cross-regional security cooperation, because disruptions in the international system, whether in Europe or in the Middle East, have spillover effects throughout the world. Earlier this year, I echoed the same message at the Paris Defense and Strategy Forum, because recent events have made it all the more necessary. In that forum, on the sidelines, we signed our first status of visiting forces agreement with a European country, that is France. Filipinos form the backbone of the global seafaring industry, as well as many healthcare systems around the world. And regrettably, our nationals have been caught in the crossfire, particularly in the Middle East. It must therefore be said that the international order should have a special concern and obligation to protect migrant workers from the Philippines, among others, and other Asian countries, smaller countries, not only because their rights and dignity must be upheld as a fundamental obligation of humankind, but also because of their because their very services and sacrifice underpin the global economy and quality of life of the countries they serve and on the sea lanes they ply. Ultimately, in a fragmenting world, convergence is not merely an option. It is an imperative, and the Philippines is actively embracing and acting on this imperative. Thank you, and a pleasant good morning to each and every one of you.
Minister, thank you very much for your speech and outlining the principles that have, of course, also, as you mentioned, infused your President's keynote address here in this very forum and the chairmanship of ASEAN. Thank you very much, and of course, for good reasons, you focused on the maritime domain, which we will come back to. May I now invite Admiral Kaudragone to take to the podium, please, Admiral.
Minister, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is a privilege for me to address this dialogue on behalf of NATO Military Committee. The fact that the Transatlantic Alliance sends a senior military official to Singapore each year is itself a statement. Security in the European Alliance and in the Indo-Pacific are interconnected. This panel title is about how the world is fragmenting. But at the same time, the need for partnership has never been greater. Let me first clear about what we mean by fragmentation. What is new is the simultaneous fracturing of the stability, institutions, and peaceful prosperity of the past decades, and the deliberate exploitation of that fracturing by revisionist authors. We see it in the weaponization of economic independence, the militarization of space and cyberspace, the manipulation of information environments to corrode public trust, and the return of a large-scale conventional warfare to the European continent, a war in Ukraine that has a direct challenge to a fundamental shared interest in peace and security. Total casualties in this war, which is now in its 5th year, are measured in the millions of lives lost. This war both illustrates and accelerates the fragmentation pressures. But in the NATO alliance, we are clear-eyed about the danger, and we are taking action. What we are witnessing inside the alliance is not fragmentation, but a shift, a long, overdue, necessary, and ultimately healthy shift. This shift has two parts. First, greater seriousness about the increased responsibilities in this new era. And second, a more fair and realistic sharing of the burdens, with Europeans taking on greater responsibilities in defense investment, in capability development, in leading on our own security. This must be crystal clear to everybody. Last year, at NATO summit in The Hague, all 32 NATO allies agreed to reach the new standard of 3.5% of GDP expenditures on national defense, plus an additional 1.5% investment in defense-related infrastructure. So all NATO allies are moving toward 5%. This is a huge increase, and this was not just a talking point. We are already seeing this happen in real terms. Last year alone, NATO's European allies and Canada invested a combined total of 5,074 billion of US dollars in defense, a 20% increase in 1 year. And we are continuing to move in the right direction. From a military point of view, what we are now focused on in NATO is translating this increased funding and investment into real capabilities. Because we cannot deter anybody by waving money in the air. To make our alliance strong, and something we are increasingly good at in NATO, we have a professional, accountable, and strategically informed process, the NATO Defense Planning Process, or NDPP. The NDPP gives countries in NATO concrete targets for the capabilities that they need to expect to deliver with their investment, and you could say that the NDPP is how we turn our billions into battalions and battleships. And the current NDPP cycle clearly prioritized the need for greater investment in defense and greater delivery of capabilities. In some areas, NATO countries in Europe and Canada will need to deliver an additional 30% of more in real capabilities. These capability targets are based on a practical, realistic assessment of what forces and capability NATO would need to implement its military plan. Simple as that. This connection between our capabilities and plans are not new concept, but it's something we haven't done in 30 years, but we are doing it now. In this context, one of the most concrete arenas in which partnership delivers strategic value is defense industry. The fragmentation of the global order has a direct industrial correlate. Supply chains under pressure, export restriction tightening, technological decoupling accelerating. Security partnerships are an essential instrument for mitigating that industrial fragmentation. They enable joint procurement, common standards, shared research and development, strategic autonomy, with the trusted interdependence among like-minded, and the most needed interoperability. When allies and partners produce equipment built to the same standards and trained to the same doctrines, but also works on data, cloud, AI, cyber, logistics standards, the coalition that result outperform one assembled from incompatible parts under pressure. And I want to be direct, as I know many representatives are here in Shangri-La. The current pace of adaptation of the defense industry continues to be insufficient. It is outrun by the speed at which threats are evolving. We need to step up from procurement cycle designed for a more predictable era and production rates calibrated for peacetime demand to an industry that moves faster, takes more risks, keeps price fair, and treats defense innovation as a strategic priority. The threats of today are already demanding more than we have. The threats of tomorrow will demand even more. The time to accelerate is now. From my point of view, at military level, I can tell you that within the alliance and across our network of 35 partners and international organizations, the cohesion is solid, genuinely solid. Just days ago, May 19, we met with all the 32 NATO chiefs of defense. The quality of the strategic coordination, the frankness of the exchanges, and the unity of purpose in that room were crystal clear. An alliance doing the hard work of adaptation, under pressure, and succeeding at it. Beyond that band of brothers and sisters, though, as chairman of the military committee, I invest considerable time engaging also with partners. To me, this is a strategic investment because these partners share our interest in peace and security. They share the same assessment of the dangers, and they bring real capabilities and expertise to work together. Last year, we convened a military committee meeting with over 20 partner nations, including our partners in the Indo-Pacific. We intend to continue to build on it further and develop those partnerships to their full potential. NATO is a defensive regional alliance, enhancing cooperation in a region with interconnected security interests is responsible defense of peace and stability. And it is right of countries to work together for a more stable and secure world. I also want to point out that partnership increasingly means flexible yet stronger relationship with different elements of civil society, academia, industry, the technology sector, NGOs, media, local government. In an era when the distinction between military and civilian domains has been systematically eroded by our adversaries, a whole-of-society approach to security and defense is a strategic requirement. Some nations have understood this for a long time, integrating military readiness with civil preparedness, public communication, and community resilience, treating every citizen as a participant in national security, not merely a beneficiary of it. And talking about partnership, let me add a final point about resilience. I believe it is time to go beyond this concept, especially in the framework of partnership. Being resilient means to be able to absorb shock. And this is not enough anymore. Our ambition should be anti-fragility. Partnership, defense, and societies so strengthened by lessons that will not even feel those shocks. So, no unnecessary duplication, of course, but open door to a certain degrees of strategic redundancy. This is where our investment and our partnership should aim to. And as we look ahead to the NATO summit in Ankara in July, as military, we expect that also the partnership agenda will advance in all aspects, alongside the capability agenda. We expect concrete steps of interoperability on industrial cooperation and on the whole-of-society frameworks that give depth to our security architecture. Our military advice is crystal clear. The nations gathered in Ankara have an opportunity to set the terms for a more secure, peaceful world, underpinned by our shared commitment to deterrence and defense and our shared interest in stability and prosperity. And I close, ladies and gentlemen, the world is fragmenting, whatever it calls, but fragmentation is not destiny. The measure of our generation will be whether we allow that fragmentation to accelerate or whether we did the harder work of building deeper and broader partnership. NATO answer is clear. We are adapting, we are investing, and we are reaching outward to partners in this region and beyond, to civil society, to industry, to every element of our society that has a stake in the outcome, because nobody can do it all alone. The security of the Euro-Atlantic and the Indo-Pacific is interconnected and indivisible, as I already said. The partnership we build and strengthen with you are the foundation of the stability our citizens will depend on tomorrow. There is an old saying from my native land, which is Italy, and I'll tell you originally, si vis pacem para bello. That was from Vegetiu Renatus, 4th century after that. So, 1500 years of history and civilization. In English, it was mentioned yesterday. If you want peace, prepare for war. A lesson identified that we keep on repeating. Maybe it is time we finally learn it together so we can move forward. Thank you.
Admiral, thank you very much for your response indirectly perhaps to that theme that had come up once or twice. What is the state of the alliance? How does fragmentation affect the alliance? I think you've given a very clear answer there, and how the alliance, to use your words, is in the business of transforming billions into battalions and battleships, and how partnership is, on the one hand, an international business, but I like your point that it is also a whole of society business that we need to grapple if we want to have resilience and anti-fragility, as you put it. So thank you very much for that. Minister Chan, if I may invite you to deliver your speech from the podium. Thank you very much.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all of you. First, let me thank you all for participating in the 23rd edition of the Shangri-La Dialogue. For over 2 decades, the SLD has provided a valuable opportunity for leaders to speak frankly, listen carefully, and find practical ways to work together to overcome our challenges. It is also an opportunity for us to create new possibilities. And this matters even more today as we meet at a time of heightened instability. Having heard your views over the last few days, I would like to share Singapore's perspective on how the nature of conflict is evolving, how we need to adapt, and what must remain constant. Conflict has evolved in terms of the 3 beyonds: beyond geography, beyond military firepower, and beyond the here and now. First, beyond geography. Conflict is no longer geographically isolated. Today, we are hyper-connected across borders and across military, economic, information, and cyber domains. Conflicts in Eastern Europe and the Middle East, for example, have disrupted global supply and production chains far beyond those regions. Second, beyond military power. While conventional military conflicts were previously largely defined by military capabilities, today's conflicts reflect the interplay of multiple dimensions of power, from weaponizing economic leverage to contesting narratives to waging lawfare to shape global rules and norms. Third, beyond the here and now, conflicts are no longer just about yesterday's quarrels or today's dispute. They are also about setting frameworks for tomorrow's contests. This may involve access to our vital lifelines like our information systems, energy grids, and water systems. At the same time, countries are grappling with how to harness new technologies while implementing effective guardrails. And we have to deal with what we call the regulation paradox. Regulate too early, and we risk stifling innovation. Regulate too late, and norms have become entrenched and too difficult to reverse. So where does that leave us? As conflict evolves, our responses must also adapt. Let me suggest 3 responses in our principles, partnerships, and politics. First, principles, institutions, and norms. We must both maintain and update the rules and norms that are critical to our security and progress. We must not think that we can do without principles, institutions, and norms. Second, partnerships. We need more and new networks of flexible, overlapping, issues-based partnerships to address the new challenges. We must not think that going alone can better address our insecurities. Third, domestic politics. Domestic confidence and cohesion are prerequisites for policy continuity, societal coherence, capability development, and in turn, international cooperation. We cannot manage international issues without managing domestic issues well, nor can we manage domestic issues well by ignoring international ones. Let me start with principles, institutions, and norms. The current system, our current system, is not perfect and needs to be refreshed and aligned with today's realities. But let us not throw the baby out with the bathwater, nor let the perfect be the enemy of the good. The alternative, a world with weak institutions and norms, where every issue and every relationship is viewed through a transactional lens, would leave us all worse off. More beggar thy neighbor policies makes beggars of us all. Heightened uncertainties erode business confidence, deter investments, and ultimately slow growth. All this then shrink the space for domestic politics and international collaboration, stifling growth further. This will soon become a negative spiral. For our nations and economies to thrive, we need stability, predictability, undergirded by rules and norms. Foregoing all these for short-term political gain would undermine our long-term collective security. The rules and norms are especially critical when they are grounded in international law. The UN Convention of the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, is one example. It provides clear and firm rules for our maritime activities, including the right of transit passage through critical straits used for international navigation. Keeping our sea lanes open is not just a matter of law, but of enlightened self-interest of all nations. Our survival, trade, and prosperity depend on it. Recent developments in the Straits of Hormuz remind us why such maritime rights matter. Should the right of transit passage be eroded, all countries that depend on maritime connectivity would be worse off. For the sake of global commerce, we must avoid a race to the bottom where states try to price each other out of access to such critical straits. And today, these waterways carry not just trade, but our critical pipelines for energy and data as well. It is in our own enlightened self and collective interest to keep them accessible, open, and secure. This is why Singapore works with Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand on the Malacca Straits Patrol. We recognize that freedom of navigation along the straits for trade, for data, and for energy cannot be secured by any single country alone. It requires practical cooperation from all stakeholders. This brings me to the second suggestion, the need for more and new overlapping networks of flexible and issue-based arrangements to complement multilateral cooperation. If international cooperation is a lattice, multilateral institutions are its pillars. They provide legitimacy and inclusiveness. But as new domains evolve rapidly, we cannot be held hostage by the lowest common denominator. We should instead develop flexible partnerships with like-minded countries, forming coalitions of the able and willing. These serve as the connecting beams of our cooperative lattice to bridge gaps, test ideas, pathfind in new and uncharted territories. And as our second speaker mentioned, some of these new networks must include not just countries, but also other stakeholders. With these networks, we can work towards building trust in domains such as cyber and AI. AI offers tremendous opportunities to strengthen national security, but no government wants an uncontrollable AI-enabled weapon system. This is why Singapore has worked with partners like the Netherlands and the Republic of Korea to convene global discussions on military AI governance. In the cyber domain, Singapore launched the ADMM Cyber Security and Information Center of Excellence in 2023. Singapore saw value in building a regional network that translates UN-level norms into practical regional cooperation. ACICE is leading an effort to implement the 11 UN norms on responsible state behavior in cyberspace for ASEAN member states. Beyond cyber and AI, Singapore sees an urgent need to establish guardrails to protect our critical underwater infrastructure. As Australian DPM Richard Miles noted yesterday, subsea cables and pipelines are critical infrastructure underpinning our global connectivity, and their vulnerability is a growing shared concern. These systems span jurisdictions and cannot be secured by any single state alone. This is why Singapore spearheaded the development of the Guiding Principles for Underwater Infrastructure Defense Exchanges, or GUIDE, with like-minded partners. And we launched this yesterday, and we welcome more partners to join us. While we work with Brunei and Thailand to co-sponsor the 2025 ADMM concept paper on critical underwater infrastructure, or CUI security, from a defense perspective, we saw a need to bring together like-minded partners from across different regions to tackle the global and transboundary challenge of CUI security. We are pleased that GUIDE was launched yesterday with 17 countries from Europe, Southeast Asia, Oceania regions, and the Middle East. GUIDE is a non-legally binding multilateral initiative that outlines shared principles for CUI security and highlights potential areas of cooperation for us to translate into real capability. The value of GUIDE is not only in the principles themselves, but in the network it builds. Through GUIDE, we hope to bring countries together around a shared vulnerability and develop common practices before they are tested in crisis. Let me turn to my final suggestion on politics. Trust abroad requires confidence at home. Emeritus Senior Minister Goh Chok Tong once described Singapore as a small speedboat in an open sea. This image still holds. We cannot control the sea, but we can certainly keep our boat seaworthy. A captain cannot steer the boat effectively if the crew is divided. If our society is anxious or distrustful, our leaders will have less room to negotiate abroad. Conversely, domestic confidence and cohesion create space for governments to engage meaningfully and constructively and strike compromises and collaboration necessary for peace. Domestic stability and external collaboration form a double helix that can and must reinforce each other. In these rough seas, steering the boat is not an easy task. It may be tempting to enact simple, populist solutions to earn domestic short-term support. However, over time, such solutions erode trust, deepen divisions, and leave societies less resilient. True leadership demands the courage to speak difficult truths, the discipline to take a long-term view, and the conviction to act in the broader interests of our people. There is no shortcut for solving problems at home. Blaming others will not fix what is broken at home. Durable solutions require countries to address their own challenges directly using their economic, military, information levers. The stronger our trust at home, the more cohesive we are, the better place we are to work with others abroad. The stronger our capabilities, the more relevant we are, and the more credible and attractive a partner we can become. By pulling our own weight, we preserve agency to pursue our own interests and avoid the forced choice of having to pick sides that ultimately makes us irrelevant. Ladies and gentlemen, our challenges ahead are daunting. But I must say that every generation will have our own challenges cut out for us. But they also represent opportunities for us to strengthen cooperation between states. Our challenges will not define us. Our responses to our challenges will define us. We can either be paralyzed by the magnitude of our challenges and retreat into zero-sum competition, or we can choose a different path by refreshing the rules that matter, creating new norms for emerging domains, and sustaining practical cooperation. Amidst these changes, our goal remains the same: to build a better future for the next generation. Singapore will continue to do our part to contribute to global stability, and it is in this spirit of encouraging honest dialogue and practical cooperation that we host the SLD every year. Let us leave this gathering not just with a better understanding of our challenges, of each other's challenges, but with a renewed commitment to work together in addressing them. And before I end, I'd like to thank IIS, the staff of Shangri-La Hotel, our security forces and media friends for your hard work behind the scenes. Thank you. I wish you a safe journey home, and we look forward to hosting you once again next year. Thank you very much.
Minister, thank you very much for a couple of things. First, for giving public expression to the Guide initiative that was launched yesterday. That is, of course, excellent to hear, but also for the elegant and, if I may say, dialectic way in which you presented your argument around principles, partnerships, and policies, joining the trust, transparency, and talks that were offered by Japan this morning. So we shall now turn to our discussion. We have a long list of people who are seeking the floor, so we will again take a group and then return to the panel. We shall start with John Cavalier of the United States.
Thank you. This question is for the whole panel, but is probably most salient to Secretary Teodoro. In what could be described as careful and deliberate remarks, Secretary Hegseth referred multiple times to the first island chain as a central concept to the United States strategy for the region. I think I don't have to tell anyone in the room that we can agree that something's very important and not necessarily agree what that thing actually means. I would like to ask the panelists, what does this term mean to your country and institution, and what is its relevance for national and regional security and stability? Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. And we'll take from Vietnam, Haido Tan.
Thank you so much for that very insightful and enlightening session. My questions go to Philippine Minister of Defense. That we heard yesterday that Secretary General Kao Kim Hwan of ASEAN informed that likely that the COC negotiation will then end up this year with some result. So from your perspective, what is the COC that you would expect? And the second question, could you assess, because we observed the constant encounters between the Philippines and Chinese assets at sea. So could you assess the risks of escalatory confrontations or the conflict in the region? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And from the Young Leaders Group and from Thailand, okay, that has just disappeared. Then I'll move on also from the Young Leaders Group, Ana Pereira de Arroyo from Timor-Leste.
Thank you very much, Chair. My question is for the Admiral Giuseppe. It's about saying, if you want peace, prepare for the war. Okay, so I am from a small and least developing country. I don't feel like, I don't agree with this saying, because this is giving room to countries which are very powerful to create weapons that are a threat to global stability and human survival. So how about the small developing countries who have little defense capability? Because for me, the true peace isn't built for war, but by investing in human development. So I would like to hear some comments from you about the small developing countries who have little defense capability. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have from China, Qi Zhang.
Thank you, Chairman. My question goes to Philippine Defense Minister. President Marcos of Philippines said that regional countries should continue making efforts to conclude a COC, Code of Conduct. And in your speech, you mentioned that Philippines respect the rule of law and preferred peaceful settlements of disputes. However, in recent years, we have witnessed that Philippines send personnel to land on uninhabited island reefs in South China Sea. Such action violates the DOC, Declaration of Conduct. How do you explain such contradiction? Thank you.
Thank you. From the United States, Lami Kim.
Well, thank you. I have a couple of questions. One is for Admiral Cavadragone. What contributions does NATO hopes its IP4 countries, especially South Korea, will make to European security? And another question is for Secretary Teodoro. There's widespread agreement that an ASEAN Code of Conduct in the South China Sea is highly unlikely to be concluded anytime soon. What are some specific achievable defense objectives for the Philippines this year as ASEAN's chair? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And from Laos, Anuluak Kitikon.
Good morning. This is a question for Defense Secretary of Philippines and the Singapore Minister of Defense. I ask this in my personal capacity. ASEAN has been known as a peaceful region for a very long time, until recently, with conflict between two ASEAN member states. As Philippines is the ASEAN chair this year and Singapore is next year, if you have one wish and it can be granted, And what would be one thing, one critical thing that, as ASEAN chairs, you would strengthen ASEAN collective security and conflict management mechanism? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And from the Young Leaders Group and from Myanmar, Kinkin Kiaki.
Thank you for the floor. My question goes to the Secretary of the National Defense from the Philippines and the Minister from Singapore. So it's regarding to internal cohesion and the ASEAN centrality. ASEAN, we all know that it's a very diverse region, and we all have our own different political systems, also our own internal issues. So because of the different members of the ASEAN countries have a different level of cooperations and partnership with several external actors. So this gives external actors a degree of leverage in influencing the ASEAN agenda and outcomes. So how can we make sure internal cohesion for the ASEAN centrality? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And from the United Kingdom, Fenella McCarthy.
Thank you, Bastian. My question is for Admiral Cavo-Dragone. So on the topic of the whole of society approach to defense and civil resilience and preparedness, you mentioned that some countries in the alliance are already well on the way to adopting this approach, and there might be lessons from them. But what will NATO do to incorporate the experiences and the effective frameworks that countries in this region have in order to make sure that this is an effective initiative across NATO as well? Thank you.
Thank you. And from Singapore, Bhavan Jayapragas.
Hi, I'm Bhavan from the Straits Times. First, for Minister Chan, could you offer your thinking on whether the guide mechanism can evolve into something like the Baltic Sentry Initiative in the Baltic, where the states in the region are contributing assets? And on a second question for Secretary Teodoro and Minister Chan, I think Sir John Chipman also alluded to this on arms control. Are small states mere bystanders in watching what could be a new arms race? You've seen the collapse of New START, no signs of strengthening the NPT. So what can small states do? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And from Australia, Stephen Jicic.
Thank you, Chair. My question's for Secretary Teodoro. Secretary, Australia and the Philippines said last year, as you know, that they'd develop an enhanced bilateral defence cooperation framework and, quote, progress arrangements for Australia's construction, use, upgrade and maintenance of defence infrastructure in the Philippines. So on this front, what work has already been progressed and what projects are being contemplated in the future? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll take two more, and then we shall return to the panel. From Japan, Hiroyuki Akita.
Thank you, Chair. My question is about the geopolitical landscape of ASEAN, and mainly to Minister Chan. So, according to the public poll by Singapore think tank released in April, ASEAN people trust US more than China. But when poll asked if you have to choose US or China, then more than 50% of ASEAN people say they will choose China. And then especially in Singapore and Indonesia and Malaysia, this trend is quite clear. So my question is, what is going on? And how does South China Sea dispute vis-a-vis China plays in this trend? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the last one from France and Lebanon, Emil Hakayem.
Thank you very much. Perhaps the most pressing and politically tricky need in terms of security partnership right now is in the very fragmented Middle East. A number of countries have come together to think about what kind of naval force would be needed to secure the Gulf once and if a deal is agreed between Iran and the US. Secretary Hexas yesterday said any deal would be a great deal. But there will be still tricky implications. What are your countries and your alliance requirements to join such a force in terms of mandate, command, regional context? What are you willing and able to contribute to such an effort, given your other important priorities? And finally, what are you telling your Gulf partners about your readiness to contribute to that effort? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emil. So I shall return to the panel now and give every speaker a few minutes to engage with some of these questions. As always, don't feel the need to go into detail on every single one. So we've got a few themes, though. Admiral, I would like to start with you, and then Minister Teodoro will come to you, and the host nation will have the final word there. But there were a few questions addressed to you, Admiral. There is that question on what does the first island chain mean to NATO. There's a question on your view on the security of small states who might not have the ability to invest a lot in their military preparedness. The Indo-Pacific partners question, and then your sense, if you could expand a bit on experiencing regional, including regional experience in your concept of whole-of-society resilience. A lot to get through. If you could take 3-4 minutes to grab them, okay. Yeah? Thank you.
Ready.
Okay, go for it.
No, the thing is that every single time I got the second question, I forgot the first one, but I got something that it is helping me out here. You know. First island change, I mean, meeting for a regional security relevance. I mean, we are really striving a lot, and this is one of the reasons I'm here, just to understand that now security is no more regional, but it is global. And whatever is happening over here is having relevance in our area, and of course vice versa. I was just giving the example that today we do have from 10,000 to 12,000 North Korean soldiers fighting in Europe. That means something for us, of course. So the regional security relevance is something that I need should be seen on a larger scale because of this kind of osmosis we are going to have on a big picture. And NATO is really striving to have all the nations, which are 32, which is not easy to get everybody. I mean, of course, on the same route, but to forward this kind of message. I go with the small state security, prioritize human development over military preparedness, and also whole of society. They are connected from my point of view. Small state security, I mean, this is why partnership and alliance are made for. We do have a smaller state in our alliance, but whenever you got all the community together, whenever you have all the states that are sharing the same values, the same principle, the same fear, the same danger, I mean, it is going to be easier. And I'll tell you what, it is very, very reciprocal. You know better than I, Article 5. I mean, any attack on any inches of the alliance is going to have the reaction of the 32. Small countries can be beneficial, can have advantage of the other one, but they are part of the whole system. And in our organization, every single one of us, even the smaller, I don't want to mention that, but they have a role and they are supposed to do something which is totally interconnected with the whole effort of the alliance. And this is the big issue. Having everybody convinced that we don't have any more national boundary, we do have the alliance boundary, and that's the one we are concentrated. And the smaller countries are within that and can be sure that they will be part of the reaction in case we need it. Human development, that's another key issue. Honestly, within the alliance, we have nations that are more prepared, more oriented in this. I mean, let me give you an example of Sweden. They have what they call the total defense. I mean, every single one of them are ready to react in case of crisis or war. Other nations, if you go, and they have a very nice small yellow schedule to do whatever they have to do in any case. I mean, to survive, to react, and on and on and on. If we go with this little booklet in other countries of the alliance, they probably burn us alive because there's not the widespread mentality that everyone needs to do his own business. Because, I mean, defense is not anymore a business of military. I mean, no more. I mean, we need to have everybody on board. I mean, politics, military, civilian people, academia, I mean, institution, everybody is now industry, and I underline that. We need industry as part of the defense, and that's the only way to face the threat today. That's world society.
On the expectations you might have for partners here from the region and their contributions to European security, like
Yes.
South Korea,
Yeah.
and then maybe NATO and the Gulf Naval Force discussion.
Two things, right. We are here because partnership is fundamental for us. We are already sharing informations. We are already sharing counter-hybrid threat, counter cyber, all this kind of new input, new issue we are developing, and we are developing that together. We are training some partners, people in our Center of Excellence. We are sharing with them, absorbing from them a certain amount of reaction to cyber attacks. This is very, very valuable. In this area, we are doing really a lot, and we will increase that. And this is the reason why I'm here. I'm talking with all our partner nations. And we are all headed to improve dramatically this kind of exchanges, which will be beneficial for both of us. Strait of Hormuz. Now we do have a coalition of the willing, which are allies, nations with partners, with like-minded nations that are getting ready, planning in case there will be the conditions to intervene there. I was in the Persian Gulf back in 1987. It is just to keep the Gulf open and to clear that from minds. It's a big issue, a good architecture, but I mean the coalition of the willing is working on that. NATO directly doesn't have a role right now, but NATO nation, they do have it. So I'm expecting, we are also, I mean, they are also relocating forces close to the area. So whenever the condition will be met, I mean, I think that they will be able to do their business.
Thank you very much. Minister, can I turn to you? Maybe take 4 minutes to work your way through the issues that were put to you. First, island chain. There were ASEAN questions as well, and defense partnership questions as well.
Thank you very much. What is popularly known as the first island chain for us are countries that have both a bespoke maritime boundary with China and the Pacific Ocean, principally, of course, Japan and the Philippines. What it means for us, basically, since we pragmatically face a common threat of violations of our territorial and maritime territorial integrity and sovereignty, then we work together to create deterrence, to create closer cooperation, and to provide a cladding for increased economic, social, and cultural cooperation between our peoples within a framework of stability and safeguarding our converged interests, which of course are hostile to the interests of others who are actively promoting their own to the disregard of rights of smaller countries such as Japan and the Philippines. So what it means for us, it is an important convergence fulcrum for us. And on that basis too, on the Philippine side, a lot of defense partnerships have evolved. And we would not have been able to do this if our situation were not based on international law and articulated with transparency, clarity, and credibility. And these partnerships are not, do not result in any objections at all, save for the People's Republic of China. Now, for ASEAN and defense, of course, we would like to see a code of conduct. However, let me step back. Why is there a need for a code of conduct when we have peremptory norms such as UNCLOS, such as the UN Charter? And The code of conduct is a collective code by a group of nations on the one side and with a single actor on the other. So perhaps the problem does not lie within ASEAN. The problem lies with the counterparty to the code of conduct. And because with that counterparty, namely China, the claimant states of ASEAN, 4 claimant states, have different issues. And for us, we will not sacrifice our territorial integrity and sovereignty because our Constitution does not allow us to do so. And to do so would be to subvert the popular, democratic, and free mandate that the people gave our political leaders, unlike some autocratic systems where the mandate comes from above, dictated down. In our country's mandates, we have to defend mandates to our populations. We have to defend every international agreement we make to the populace. They are free to question all our activities before a court. Who will judge whether or not our acts are based on and not inconsistent with our fundamental laws? So within us, within ASEAN, there is no need for a code of conduct. Bargain for a status quo, which is unfair and unacceptable to a lot of our claimant countries. South China Sea activities, sea encounters, once again, we are smaller countries. It would be foolhardy for us to initiate encounters, particularly in areas where we know, because we resort to legal means, we have no right to be in. Unfortunately, once again, the encounters are caused by an occupant without any right or any legitimate claim that they are willing to demonstrate impartially before an international tribunal, such as in the arbitral award. That is the cause. It is not the Philippines or Indonesia or Malaysia or Brunei or Vietnam, for that matter, which is the cause of encounters at sea.
Minister,
It is China.
Let us perhaps leave it there, so I can give a few minutes to the host nation to offer your concluding thoughts and pick up on any of the particular issues that were raised and addressed to you. Minister, please.
Thanks, Bastian. I think I have a couple of minutes, and I thought there were 4 sets of issues addressed to me, and perhaps, as you say, a set of concluding thoughts, which will be very short. First, on what we expect the guide to do, we have participation from the Baltic states, the Middle East, the Oceania. First, I think we need to establish a common understanding of the international laws and norms that should enable freedom of access for the critical infrastructure, and we need to share information of how we can protect them. We need to develop real capabilities in real time of how there might be threats to such systems, and very importantly, as we have seen today, how and when we have apprehended someone who have damaged the critical infrastructure with bad intentions, what can we do? So these are the practical things. How do we establish the norms to allow good things to happen? How do we detect when bad things happen? And finally, how do we take to task the people who do bad things? Second issue, what can Singapore do and contribute to the Gulf? We will always do what we can for 2 reasons. First, to address the immediate challenge, as we have done before with Combined Task Force 151 and 153, but more importantly for us to establish the international norms necessary for us to uphold UNCLOS and the international rule of law. Third question, very good one. What should ASEAN always remember? Just one thing. The competition is not amongst us. The competition is really how we get our act together to compete with the rest of the world and make a positive contribution. The world has enough troubles. If ASEAN just stay out of trouble, we will distinguish ourselves. The last question, what's happening? Pro-US, pro-China? What is ASEAN's position? I hope this is ASEAN's position. We are not pro-US or anti-US. We are not pro-China or anti-China. We are pro-ASEAN. Final thoughts. As I was sitting here, I thought of a limerick that I thought I'll just share it for the whole Shangri-La dialogue, and maybe this will require the interpreters. Words without action, nothing is achieved. Action without communication, trust is destroyed. No action, no communication, everything is impossible. Action and communication, nothing is impossible. So those are my concluding thoughts. For those who are conversant in Mandarin, maybe it rhymes better in Mandarin, and the translator can say this. 空谈不做，万事成难；只做不谈，互信更难；不做不谈，难上加难；做做谈谈，万事不难。Those are my concluding thoughts.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for those concluding thoughts, elegantly put. We are now moving to conclude the 23rd Shangri-La dialogue, and the first thing I would, of course, like to do is thank the fantastic ISS staff here at the ISS Asia office and the executive director of that office, Verle Nauens. The team has done an outstanding job, of course, reinforced by colleagues from all of our offices who have helped to make sure that we can convene in a setting that includes wide international participation. And it's also my great pleasure to thank the staff of the Prime Minister's office, the President and his team for the splendid reception at the Istana, the Ministry of Defense and the Minister, of course, the Permanent Secretary and his senior officials, and of course the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Police and the other security officials who were involved and have kept us safe. We had 566 delegates, including 3 heads of state and government, 39 ministers, and all of them supported by some 1,500 officials. 62 nationalities were represented and 46 government delegations participated. The ISS, as we ourselves, arranged for 80 bilateral meetings, but there were many more across the 27 bilateral meeting rooms that were used in addition to our own efforts. And we've been proud to have been leading the conversation across the front pages, broadcast news, and online social media over the last few days. When we checked this morning, we had already reached over 38 million people via social media. And of course, the attendance of major international news outlets has once again shown the global relevance of this dialogue with media representatives from over 30 countries. As has been suggested, truly effective defense diplomacy isn't always obvious, but let me tell you, about some of the concrete things that have happened and some of the announcements. And of course, among those is the launch of the guiding principles for underwater infrastructure defense exchanges led by Singapore, but also the announcement of the first AUKUS Pillar 2 signature project focused on uncrewed underwater technologies. There was a memorandum of understanding on supply chain resilience among Singapore and Italy and many more. The point I'm trying to make here is, of course, that the ISS Shangri-La dialogue exists exactly for this purpose, to create opportunities for defense cooperation, to find practical solutions for the shared challenges across the region. We have, of course, already begun planning for the 24th Shangri-La dialogue, and I'm looking forward to reconvening here in 2027 on the 28th to the 30th of May, so in a way the same weekend. The idea of the Shangri-La dialogue was born 25 years ago. It is now a fixture in the regional security and defense diplomatic calendar of the Indo-Pacific, and indeed, the Shangri-La dialogue can be, in the best possible sense of the word, an action-forcing event for defense diplomacy. And again, in 2026, the many fruitful meetings between delegations and the agreements reached and announced over the course of this weekend are testament to that fact. And I'd like to offer a brief quote on the Shangri-La dialogue and the ISS, and it goes like this. The ISS has no agenda of its own in convening this dialogue, other than to create the best possible environment for engagement, both public and discreet, and to inject useful freshness into the strategic debate. This is not an international relations conference, it's a defense ministers' gathering, where questions of strategy are properly front and center, an important goal everyone here shares. It is to imagine and then create the conditions for strategic stability. End of quote. These are the words of Sir John Chipman, Director General and Chief Executive of the ISS from 1993 to 2023, and ISS Executive Chairman since 2023. Sir John is the quintessential defense diplomat and the intellectual founding father of the Shangri-La dialogue. While he has exciting things planned, Sir John is retiring from the ISS this weekend. And I'd like you all to join me in thanking Sir John for the mighty foundations he has built and the contributions to international security he has made. What a legacy, John. Thank you very much. There's really nowhere else to go here than lunch. So with that, I shall close and invite you now to have lunch. The ministers have a ministerial engagement, and I wish you all a very safe journey home. Thank you very much.